So we have created our model classes. Now we should be able to store our model objects in a database. How? That's pretty easy. Look at this file here, db.sqlite3. This is a blank SQLite database that Django admin automatically created for us. SQLite is a very simple, lightweight database that we often use in small applications, like applications that we run on mobile devices. But it's not suitable for an enterprise web application that is supposed to serve thousands or even millions of users. So it doesn't have features like security and concurrency. In those situations, we use databases like MySQL, SQL Server by Microsoft, Oracle, Postgres, and so on. The good thing is that Django supports all these database engines. For now, we're going to go with this simple SQLite database, and later in the future, I will show you how to replace this with a MySQL database. Now, what I want you to do is to open up your browser and search for DB browser for SQLite. This is a simple application that we use to open an SQLite database. So let me quickly show you. Here it is. So here you can create a new database or open an existing one. I'm going to open the SQLite database in our project. So let's drag and drop it here. There you go. So currently we have no tables here, and that means we have to create a couple of tables in order to store movies and genres in this database. Having said that, when using Django, we don't have to manually design these tables. We can have Django automatically create them for us based on our models. So every time we create new model classes or modify existing ones, we tell Django to compare our model classes with our database. Django will look at our database, it will figure out what tables and columns we have, then it will calculate the difference between our model classes and our database tables. And based on that, it will create a migration. A migration is essentially a Python file that includes some code. When we run that, it will synchronize our database with our model classes. Let me show you. So let's open up a terminal window and run python manage.py make migrations. Now it tells us that no changes are detected because by default Django is not aware of our model classes. So the first step is to register our movies app with Django. Let me show you how to do that. So here in our project, inside the vidlet package, open settings.py. As I told you before, this file contains various configuration settings for our application. One of the settings is installed apps, and these are the apps that are installed by default. So the first one is admin, and this creates an administration panel for us. You're going to see that soon. We have auth, which is an authentication framework. With this, we'll be able to authenticate users and see if they have permission to perform various tasks. We have content types, which is a framework for creating generic relationships between model classes. We'll look at this in the future. Below that, we have the Sessions app, which is a framework that allows us to temporarily store data about the current user. Next, we have the messaging framework, and we use that in situations where, let's say the user creates a new movie, then we redirect them and display a message like, the movie was successfully created. And finally, we have static files, which is used for managing static files like CSS files, images, and so on. Now, in most applications, we need pretty much all these installed apps, but if you don't need any of these apps in your application, you can simply come back here and delete that app. Now, in this demo, we need to register our movies app here, so Django can keep track of our model classes in that app. So back to our movies folder. Here we have this file, apps.py. Earlier, I told you that here we can have various configuration settings for the movies app. So look at the name of this class, movies config. This class is in the apps module of the movies package. So to register the movies app with Django, we need to provide the complete path to this class. So back to settings.py. Here we add movies, that's our package. Then we go to the apps module and finally movies config. Save the changes. Now back in the terminal, let's run the make migrations command one more time. Okay, this time Django detected that there are some changes in the movies app, so it created a migration that is inside movies/migrations/this file. Let's have a quick look at this migration. So here we have a class called migration, and in this class we have a couple of operations for bringing our database up to date with our current model classes. So here's the first operation. For creating a model, you can see the name is set to genre, and here are the fields of the genre. So we have ID and name. Now in our code, we only specified the name field. We didn't add the ID field. Django automatically takes care of that. So it ensures that every object has an ID property that uniquely identifies that object. Now similarly, we have another create model operation for creating the movie table. And in this table, we're going to have these fields, ID, which is added automatically, plus all these fields that we defined in our code. Now, this migration is not executed yet. It simply describes the operations that need to be performed on the database to bring it up to date with our current model classes. So the next step is to run this migration. Now, let me show you something. Let's run Python manage.py run server. Earlier, you saw this error. You have 16 unapplied migrations. That basically means we have migrations that need to be executed. Earlier, we had 15 migrations. Now, after adding these two classes, we have a new migration. So we have a total of 16 unapplied migrations. So let's stop the server with Control and C and run Python manage.py migrate. This will run all the pending migrations on our database. Let's go ahead. Beautiful. You can see all these migrations are applied. So as you can see, each of these migrations is prefixed with the name of the app that contains it. So here we have a migration for our content types app. Here's another migration for our auth app. Below that, we have 3 migrations for our admin app. So each app can have its own models and migrations. Now, after all these migrations, you can see the migration in our movies app. Now, if you open our SQLite database one more time, you can see we have a total of 13 tables. Each of these tables is prefixed with the name of the app that contains it. So here are the 2 tables for our movies app. We have movies underline genre and movies underline movie. So the table names are in singular. Of course, this is done by convention, and we can always overwrite that in the future if we want to. Now let's expand the movie table. So we can see we have these columns, ID, title, release year, and so on. So we didn't have to manually create any of these tables. Django automatically created this for us. Also, we have this table, Django underline migrations. Django uses this table to keep track of the migrations that are applied on the database. So let's go to Browse Data tab, and from the list of tables, select Django migrations. You can see these are the migrations that are currently applied on our database. If you scroll down, you can see here we have a migration for our movies app, and this is the name of the migration. And here's the date time that this migration was applied.